Hey everyone, I'm Catherine and welcome to my channel. Today we're going to be discussing the infamous and currently unsolved case involving 5-year-old Summer Wells. Summer Wells disappeared from her family home in the afternoon of 15 June 2021 and she hasn't been seen since. Now, significant police investigations and searches of the family's property have been undertaken, and to date there are no leads as to what might have happened to Summer on the 15th of June 2021. It follows that at the present time, no one has been charged with any offences related to her disappearance, and the police have not found any bones or skeletal remains. And so there is a significant question mark over what happened to young Summer on the 15th of June. It's appropriate for me to start this video by showing you a photo of the Wells family. So in this photo, you can see that there is Candus Wells, or Candus Bly, the mother. You can see the father is Don Wells. You can see Summer Wells, so 5-year-old Summer Wells, and her 3 older brothers, so her 3 older siblings. So let's take a look at a photograph of the Wells home. So you can see that there is a property, there's a house, and there's significant trees and bushland around the house. And the police have commented several times on how rugged the terrain surrounding the house is. So it's really important to note from the outset that Summer went missing from her family home in the mid-afternoon when her 3 brothers, her grandmother Candace and her mother Candace, they have the same name. So we've got Candace, Summer's mother, and Candace, the grandma. They were all home when she supposedly disappeared from the house. Now, it's important to show the bushy, wooded, rugged terrain because the police have said that it's hampered their investigation so far. It's made it very difficult for them to conduct the investigation and the search of the property. But it's also important to note that to date, no body, no clues, and no remains have been found. So this girl has supposedly just vanished. While several family members are home, and this is why so many people are becoming obsessed over what happened to young Summer on the 15th of June. How can she have just disappeared? It's important to note that the Wells family live on acres of land, and so it's not just a small search of a backyard, it's a search of acres and acres of rugged terrain and this property. So that's why police have indicated that it's been so hard so far to conduct the search quickly, as quickly as they would like to. As I said, nothing's been found despite their efforts and their days and days and days of searching to date. I know you can probably hear my newborn hiccuping in the background. I do apologize for that. I have just given him a feed and he's helping me make this true crime video today. So say hello to little Maxwell.
Oh. Tired baby.
From what I can see from social media and other online sources, some people seem to think that Don or Candace, or Don and Candace, are involved in the disappearance of Summer somehow. Some people think that Summer just wandered off and she's still in the terrain somewhere and that her body or her remains or she may be found at some stage. Some people think that a stranger, it's more likely that a stranger has been stalking and has attended the property and abducted Summer from the family home. And then of course there is some other more outside of the box theories, for example, that it was the brothers. So there are these 4 kind of groups. Because the majority of what I've seen online speculates that Don or Candace or Don and Candace have something to do with Summer's disappearance, I think it's important to start the video with some American statistics regarding the disappearance of children in America. So the reason I'm using American statistics is because this crime or the disappearance took place in Tennessee in America. So in this video, what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with some statistics regarding the disappearance of children in America. Then I'm going to talk about the factual chronology about what happened on the 15th of June leading up to Summer's disappearance. And then I'm going to talk to you about Don Wells and Candace Wells' background and some of the disclosures regarding sexual, I can't use specific words on YouTube, so use your imagination, sexual allegations and both Candace and Don's criminal records, because a lot of the public are relying on their pasts to strengthen their view that they may somehow be involved. So statistically in America, less than 350 individuals under the age of 21 have been abducted by strangers per year since 2010. So stranger abduction is actually much less common than abduction by family or someone known to the family. Hundreds of thousands of children go missing in America each year. And when you actually look at the figures, only around 1% of those missing children relate to stranger abductions. 95% of kids who go missing or are lost are returned home safe to their parents. So literally the rarest type of child abduction relates to abduction by stranger. And the statistics show that usually the abductions by strangers happen when kids are on their way to school or on the way home from school or at the school gate. Let's take a look at family abductions. So in America, there are over 870,000 children who are abducted by family members or relatives in the United States. It's usually mothers or female family members who are the abductors. Children who are abducted by family members are more likely to come from lower socioeconomic households and usually from families of separated parents. Let's jump right in. Summer's full name is Summer Moon Utah Wells, and Summer is the only daughter to Candus Bly, or Candace Wells, and Don Wells. So Summer, her 3 older brothers, Don, Candace the mother, Candace's own mother, who was Grandma Candace. So in this part of America, it's very common that people name their kids after themselves. So you have Candus Bly, or Candace Wells, which is Summer's mother. Then you have Candace's own mother, and we'll call her Grandma Candace in this video. So they all live together on 11 acres in this wooded bushland area in Tennessee in this house. So again, I'll upload a photo of the property and you can see. So the house is actually located on top of a hill and you have to drive this kind of long driveway to get up to the house. So it's kind of isolated and secluded. And as I said, it's on 11 acres. The property is located in Rogersville, which is a very, very small town. And actually only around 4,400 people live in Rogersville. And the people that live there often say that it's a very small town mentality. Everyone knows everyone's business, that type of jam. So let's talk a little bit more about Summer. So Summer was described by her family as the boss of the family. If anyone was out of line, Summer would put them back in line. So apparently she was pretty assertive, just like her mum Candace. A lot of the public have commented on the fact that Summer used to have kind of longish white blonde hair, and that closer to the time that she disappeared, her head was shaved. Her parents shaved her head. A lot of ominous theories have been put out in the public regarding the parents' decision to shave her head. Now, attention has also been drawn at the fact that Don and Candace have given multiple different explanations for their decision to shave her head. Candace said that it was because she was a tomboy and she just liked shaved heads. She also said in another interview that it's because she had a shaved head herself, Candace, and that she was in awe of her mother and she just wanted to be more like her mother. That's another explanation. And another one was that she apparently had nits. So they'd given several reasons as to why they shaved her head, and people have really clung onto that as some sort of ominous tone. My personal opinion is all of them kind of seem logical, and why can't it be more than one reason? Maybe she is just a tomboy who loves her mum and wanted to kind of copy her. So personally, I don't read too much into the shaved head issue. So Don says during a media interview that Summer was a tomboy, but she was also very, very girly. And he recalls that she loved Frozen and she used to sing all the Frozen songs with him. And he recalls that she would ask him to spin her around while they watched Frozen together. He says that Summer used to refer to herself as the princess of the house. So Candace actually gives her recount of what she says happens on the 15th of June 2021 during a media interview. There is a fantastic video by the channel Observe that I watched, and it includes the author's comment and educated opinion on Candace and Don's demeanor and whether they might be deceitful during this media interview, and it includes what she says happened. So the chronology of facts which I've derived is a lot of it has been taken from their media interview, and I'll pop the link to that interview and to the Observe video in the description box below. So it's fantastic. I would recommend that you watch that video. During the media interview, Candace, so Summer's mother, says that on the 15th of June, Tuesday the 15th of June 2021, her mother, so Grandma Candace and Summer were at home. They were outside picking flowers, and then soon after they went inside, and Summer says that she wants to go and play with her brothers, and Candace says, well, okay. Candace says that she watches Summer walk out to go to play with her brothers. Like, she heads out towards the porch. So that's the last time she sees Summer. She says that she goes to do something for 2 minutes, and the crucial part here is for 2 minutes. She says she had her eyes off Summer for 2 minutes. She says that she comes to the boys and she says, oh, where's your sister? And the boys say, oh, she wanted to go downstairs and play in the toy room. Candace yells out, Summer, Summer, and has no response. She thinks, well, that's weird. And she comments that it's weird because Summer always responded. She goes down to the toy room downstairs and Summer's not there. Summer's disappeared. So this is allegedly how it happened. So she takes her eyes off Summer for 2 minutes. Summer goes into the room to play with the brothers, and the brothers haven't given any comments or evidence. And I'm sure that if this goes to court or if there is some evidence of foul play, the brothers will be asked, and the police probably have asked the brothers, because really technically they're the last people who saw Summer, not Candace. If she went into the room and then told the brothers that I'm going to go downstairs and play with toys, technically they're the last people that saw Summer alive. So then apparently Summer went down to the toy room and she disappeared. That's Candace's story. So during this day, so on the 15th of June 2021, Don Wells was at work. Don Wells says that he received a call from Candace while she was at home and she was frantic. He says that Candace told him what happened, and then he says, hang up the phone and call 911. Our daughter's missing. Now, what happens is Candace apparently hangs up from Dom, and then she calls 911 and says what happened. But Don also hangs up from the call and he also calls 911. Don says that after the phone call, he left work and travelled home as soon as he could. He says that as soon as he got home, he got there before the police got there. And he says that multiple people within the community were already out looking for Summer. The Missing Persons Bureau, so the person that Candace and Don spoke to, said that the missing person report was that someone reported her missing at 6:30 p.m, that she was last seen wearing a pink shirt and grey shorts, and she was barefoot. Now, it was allegedly Don who made this call, who then forwarded Don's recollection or what happened on the phone between him and Candace onto the police. Now, the dispatch call has been released, and the weird thing is, what Don said is different to what Candace says happened in her media interview. So when Don spoke to the dispatch person, he told them that Candace went for a walk. And then she came back, and that's when Summer was missing. Now, in a later media interview, Candace comments that definitely didn't happen. I didn't go for a walk. I don't walk around this property because I'm scared of the wild animals. She comments that she's scared of the coyotes and other wild animals. So a lot of the public have really jumped on Don telling a different story as to what Candace tells the media. And why would he do that? Why has this inconsistency happened? A lot of people in the public have also commented that it's strange that Don would say to Candace, hang up the phone and call 911, which is suitable because Candace is the one who can tell them what happened, what were the last moments that she observed with Summer. He can't because he's at work. A lot of the public have commented that it's bizarre that he tells Candace to do that, but as soon as they hang up the phone, he also calls 911. It could just be a miscommunication of facts. We are dealing with two parents who you would suspect are absolutely beside themselves that their daughter's gone missing. So it could just be a miscommunication, but it's definitely worth noting that discrepancy between what Don tells the dispatch officer, the Bureau of Missing Persons, and what Candace allegedly told him. It's very different. Another thing the public have commented on is that Don was at work at the time that Candace called him in a frantic state. Now, Don works approximately an hour away from home. Now, it's also important to note that Don says that the police weren't there when he arrived home, and that's confirmed. So he beat police home. But apparently, as soon as he spoke to Candace, he's at work, Candace and him hang up, they contact the police or the Missing Persons Bureau. The police are immediately contacted and they immediately act on this. So you would suspect, a lot of the public have indicated that they question how did Don beat the police home? Did it really take Don an hour to get home? So I think there'll be an investigation into how long it really did take Don, or was he, at a different site for work? Why did he beat the police back home if he really was at work an hour away? So let's take it back to before Summer disappeared. So before Summer disappeared, Candace says that she, Grandma Candace, and Summer, they have to go to a medical appointment for Grandma Candace. So they pick up a 15-year-old boy called Hunter on the way. Candace says that Hunter wanted to come for the drive because he just wanted to get away from his grandma. They were having issues. Now, the 15-year-old boy's mother and Candace allegedly used to be friends. They fell out, but Candace maintained her relationship with 15-year-old Hunter. So Candace says that she, Grandma Candace, Hunter, and Summer, they go to the appointment. They then go to fill a script, and while the script is being filled, it's a hot day, so they go over to a nearby hole and let Summer swim in the water hole because it is such a hot day. So Hunter has later said, and this is denied by Candace, but he later says that Candace gave him an alcoholic drink on when they were doing this, when they were at the fishing hole. So Hunter also says, and this has not been accepted by Candace, but he also says that on the way home, they stopped through a drive-through, and during the drive-through, Candace receives a phone call from Don while he's at work. And apparently Don says to Candace that there is a local pet in the area who's touching, words to that effect. Now, how does Hunter know? Well, apparently after Candace got off the phone, he said, what did Don say? And Candace told everyone in the car, Don says that this person, so he actually names the person, but for privacy reasons, no one mentions the name. He says, well, this person's been spotted around the neighborhood, doing that. And Hunter has now spoken out and said that that's what happened on the way home. Candace doesn't accept that. She says that didn't happen. That phone call didn't happen. That's another discrepancy in what Candace says happened on the day and the hours leading up to her disappearance. So Candace says that they were at the water hole for about 15 to 20 minutes. Hunter says they stopped at the drive-through. They picked up the script, went through the drive-through, and he was dropped home at about 2:30 that day. On the way home in the car, there was a video that Grandma Candace allegedly accidentally took on her phone. I'll put a photo here of a screenshot from that footage. You can see that Summer is asleep on some milk in the back seat. So a lot of the public have really jumped on this photo to say their theory that she was already deceased at this time. I don't know if I believe that. I think kids can fall asleep in all kinds of spots and areas, and to me she looks well colored, etc. So I don't know, there's no evidence that suggests that she was deceased at this time, but this accidental video, it is actually helpful because it helps us create a timeline of events of what happened on this day. So the video was taken at about 3:09 p.m. in the afternoon, so you can see that it kind of is consistent with what Hunter says. They drop him home at 3:09, they're still in the car. The accidental video of somewhere in the backseat asleep was taken. So this means that there was around 3.5 hours between the time that Summer and the rest were at the water hole and when she allegedly went missing. So we can gather that Summer and the family probably got home somewhere around 3:15, around that time, because the video was taken at 3:09, and she was reported as missing after 10 minutes of being missing, so at about 6:30. So there's the 3.5 hour window of what happened. So as I said, Grandma Candace, Summer out picking flowers. She gets a piece of candy off Grandma. They walk inside. Candace says she goes to play with the brothers while they're watching TV. She says she watches her walk out to the porch in the direction of where the brothers are. She then says to the brothers, where's your sister? They say she went downstairs to the toy room. Candace says she only had her eyes off her for 2 minutes. She goes downstairs. Summer's nowhere to be seen. She's vanished. So the police asked the local people around town to search their CCTV footage and to check their properties to see if someone might have ventured over to their property, might have been hiding or something, or if their CCTV footage had caught anything. And nothing has come up. No one has observed any signs or clues that Summer has been at their property. Summer has not. There's been no signs or clues on any of the CCTV footage from the neighbours, and all of the neighbours that they've asked have been cooperative. They've let the police onto their property. They've been cooperative. So there's no one that's acting suspicious in any way so far. The police have noted that even Candace and Don, they've been completely cooperative the whole time in their investigation. So the day after Summer went missing, there was a press conference, and one of the sheriffs was saying on camera that the rugged terrain really is quite rugged. It was boiling hot. Their radio devices didn't work, so they couldn't communicate with each other because of where the property was. And the heat, the terrain, the hills, they said it made conducting their search for Summer extremely, extremely difficult. Nonetheless, they persevered and they covered significant area within the first few days. The sheriff commented that within the first couple of days, they can usually tell whether there's some suspicious circumstances and they need to be looking at kind of homicide, aspects of the case, or whether it genuinely was someone has disappeared, she's probably in the terrain. And they commented that at this stage they had no evidence one way or the other. There was no evidence that she'd been taken by a stranger either. So there is, as I said at the beginning, a huge question mark over how this young girl disappeared. The sheriff noted that on the same day that Summer went missing, they conducted a roadblock and they were stopping and checking all cars in the area to see if they'd seen anything or if they'd noticed any clues or anything associated with the case. The sheriff noted that this was not because they suspected anyone working in the area, but they were just trying to cover all bases, and they thought it was very important to note that they went to the extent of a roadblock. On the day that Summer went missing, an Amber Alert was issued and it was later upgraded to an Endangered Child Alert. In Don Wells' formal statement to police, he noted and he stated that he does not believe that Summer ran off, that she chose to run off into the bush. He said that she would never leave the family. She would just never disappear. She would never do that. Don said that he was of the view and he thinks that someone attended the property and they took Summer. On a lot of social media, Facebook pages, a lot of people are calling Candace or referring to her as Megan Boswell. Now, you'll remember that Megan Boswell, her daughter went missing in December of 2019, just disappeared. But in that case, it must be noted that the family didn't report her as missing until February. So in my view, that's not really comparable to this case, because within 10 minutes of Summer going missing, she'd called Dawn and then they'd both called the police. But it is important to note that apparently Candace has been subjected to a lot of hate online and a lot of people calling her Megan Boswell. It's really interesting to note that in response to the Megan Boswell case, there's now a law called Evelyn's Law, which is that parents must register or contact police and let them know that their child is missing within 24 hours. Because, you know, you'll remember that case with Casey Anthony. These people are just waiting so long to report their children as missing, and it's impacting the police's ability to conduct proper searches. So I just thought that was very interesting. During a media interview, Don was asked how the brothers, so how Summer's siblings were handling her going missing, and his response was, and I quote, "They're handling it better for some reason that I don't understand. My oldest boy will say from time to time that he misses her. Your mind has a way of forgetting every now and then. I find myself doing it too. Then it comes crashing back, of course. I might get away from it for 15 to 20 seconds, but it will all come back. That's the first thought in my mind when I wake up." So a lot of the public have indicated and said, you know, that's a weird thing for a dad to say. Why would you be trying to forget the fact that your daughter's missing? Within, you know, why would you be trying to forget that? It's bizarre. You'd be obsessing over the fact that your child is missing, searching constantly, contacting the police, contacting neighbors. It just seems like a very bizarre thing for Don to have said. Another discrepancy in Candace versus Don's recollections and evidence and comments is apparently Candace was asked the same question, how were the boys handling it? And Candace said that they're not handling it well. They're devastated. They're crying all the time. So how can you have this family living in the same house give such different recollections? So are the boys devastated, or are they handling it weirdly well, as Don would say? So Don has done a few YouTube videos and a few media interviews following his daughter's disappearance. Now, if you watch behavioral or verbal body language analysis channels like Observe, fantastic channel, I love it. He's actually done, the author did a video on Candace and Don, their media interview where Candace says what happened on the day of Summer's disappearance. I'll pop the link to that video in the description box below. It provides the full video. Now, often he comments on, and he's trained as a body language behavioral analyst in respect of deceit, whether someone's lying or not. He's done a lot of videos on this, on the Chris Watts case and those types of other true crime cases as well. So it's a fantastic channel. You know, often he comments about people referring to missing persons in the past tense as a sign that they've already put in their mind that they're gone, they're passed away. They're speaking about them in the past tense. Now, I don't know if someone picked up on this to Don, but he does that in one of his media interviews. He refers to someone in the past tense. Then you can see that he realizes that he's done that. And then he comments on camera and he comments on the fact, oh, I've just referred to her in the past tense. No, you know, as the days goes on, I'm losing hope. But he actually picks up on that himself, catches himself out doing it in a media interview and comments on it, which I find very interesting. Don has made his opinion very clear. He is of the view that someone had been watching Summer on Facebook. They found her on Facebook and he thinks that she has been trafficked. I have to watch the words I'm saying on YouTube, and that someone came to the property and abducted her, and that's what has happened. He has said repeatedly in several media interviews and to several outlets that he does not believe that Summer is at the property. And he's said that repeatedly. A lot of the public have indicated their view that they think he's saying that to kind of, detract the police and to try and influence the police, stop looking here, go somewhere else. She's been taken, focus your energy there. If you were a grieving parent that genuinely thought that, you'd be a lot more vocal than that, wouldn't you? You'd be, he said on camera, oh, I understand that the police have to look at the property because that's just what they've got to do. But he's very blasé and quite relaxed in his view that he thinks she's been abducted. He thinks they're wasting their time at the property. And a lot of the public have commented that he said it so many times, that there's nothing here, go somewhere else to look. By a week after Summer's disappearance, the authorities were saying that there was absolutely no sign that she had been abducted. Also, you have to remember the property is on the top of a hill and in this rural area where there's rugged terrain. You have to also think the 3 older siblings are at home. Grandma Candace is at home. Mum Candace is at home. Apparently she went outside for just 2 minutes. You'd think that someone would have heard a car or Summer scream or some indication if she had been abducted. Whereas if she just trolloped into the bush, maybe you wouldn't hear it. I guess, you might think that they'd come up with something and, quietened her, but you'd have to think there'd be a car. If she'd really gone missing in 2 minutes, wouldn't you see a car? Or the people would be found in the bush leaving by foot? So these are the types of queries and issues that are coming to the public's attention. Now, we've kind of covered the facts of what happened on the day that Summer went missing and some of the inconsistencies between what Candace says happened, what Hunter says happened, and what Don says happened. I do note that I would like to hear from the young boys, the siblings. What do they say happened? Because they are allegedly the last people that saw Summer alive before she went downstairs to play with the toys. We haven't heard from them yet. What we're going to do now is we're going to take a look at Don's criminal record and some of the allegations of sexual made by his stepsister. Then we're going to take a look at Candace's criminal background and something very bizarre that she did soon after her daughter went missing. Don Wells used to live with his mother. So when he was very, very young, he lived with his mother and her then partner named Kelly. Now, it has come out that Kelly may have sexually Don. So just remember that. Apparently, it happened to Don when he was very young. So we're talking about Don Wells at the moment. So after that happened, Don apparently started living with his father, and it was his father who was also named Don. So you've got Don Wells, Summer's dad, and then Grandpa Don, we'll call him Grandpa Don or Don Sr. You got Don Sr. So he raised Don Wells primarily. So Don Sr. had 2 children, and one of them was Don Wells. Now, Don Sr. needed a babysitter, and he hired this woman who he later ended up marrying. And this woman had 2 children, one named Mary and one named Jeannie. Mary and Jeannie are Don Wells, Summer's dad's stepsisters. When Jeannie was 5 years of age, her family, so her mum, Mary, they started living with Don Sr. and Don's children as a family. Don Wells, Summer's dad, was 11 years old when the family started living together. Jeannie has now come out to public and given, statements regarding what happened to her as a child. So she says the first night that they moved in as a family, Don came into her room and he told her about this game that they would play. He called it the dare game, where he would put his hand on her leg and put his hand up until he touched her privates, and she would say stop. And that was the dare game. So he basically put his hand up and did that. Now, apparently when she would say, stop, he would say, no, we have to go further. And she says that that's how all of the further incidents began. Jeannie reports that when Don was younger, so when they started living together as a family, he got in trouble a lot. So apparently there was an incident where he set a barn on fire and heaps of animals died, and that he was just known for being very, very naughty. Jeannie said that when she was 6 or 7 years old, that's when Don started to come into her bedroom at nighttime. She says that Don would come into the bedroom and do things to her that she, and I quote, would not repeat. She says that after Don was done sexually her, that he would tell her, you can't tell anyone, otherwise I'll die. And she later says that he changed it to say, if you tell anyone, our family will die. And so she kept her mouth shut because she didn't want him, she loved her stepbrother, she didn't want him or her family members to pass away. Mary said that she recalls on one night when her parents were both away, that Don and a few of his friends came over to the house. And she says that they were drinking alcohol, they were smoking stuff at the house, and she remembers that Don came into her room with his friends and they pinned her down and they pulled her clothes off, and that she was struggling to get free. And she finally got free of Don and his friends and ran into the parents' bedroom and locked the door and waited in there. She was basically, a hostage in the bedroom. She says that her biological brother and her boyfriend at the time were friends, and they later came home and she came out and told them what happened. They said, call the police. She called the police, she made a report, and apparently she told her mum and the parents when they came home, and her mother was like, you need to charge Don right now. That's absolutely horrendous. And apparently Don Sr. said to the mother, to Mary and Jeannie's mother, you can't do that. I don't want my son to go to jail. You need to make her retract her police statement, or I'm going to divorce you. So apparently Jeannie and Mary's mum said, I can't be divorced. I can't have that circumstance. And she convinced Mary to retract her statement. Jeannie recalls that from when she was about 6 and 7 years old, Don's sexual became a lot more aggressive. She recalls putting 3 layers of clothing on before bed and, multiple pairs of underwear on, because she thought that might stop him because there's more clothes, or it might take more time and someone might come in. And that's just heartbreaking. She says she also used to put booby traps around the room that he might run into and make a noise so someone would come in the room and catch him. So heartbreaking. Jeannie says that on one occasion when Don was in the room, Don Sr. must have heard. He came into the room and caught him in the bed with her. And Don Sr. says to Don Wells, well, what are you doing? And he says, oh, I must have just sleptwalked in here. And he just says, well, go back to your room. And nothing happened. And Jeannie thought in her mind then, yes, this is going to stop it all, and was so excited. And then when the dad, Don Sr., just said, well, go back to your room, she was absolutely heartbroken. When Jeannie was 10 or 11 years old, Don went to jail for 2 years for a burglary type of offense, a break and enter type of offense. And she says it was the best 2 years, and she finally had 2 full years where she was free of sexual assault. Now, when Don got out of prison, apparently everyone in the family was so excited and so happy, and talking about how excited they were to have him home, how he'll be a changed boy. He was very much the golden child, and she was just dreading it. But she also thought maybe he will be changed. Maybe he will be a new person. Jeannie says that on the first night that he got out of jail and came back home, that he did it to her again. She says that she'd gone 2 years of happiness without this happening to her. And when it happened, the first night that he got home, when she had that little bit of hope that he might have changed, she became distraught. She started crying. She ran into the parents' bedroom and she told them what happened. Again, Don said, when she told the parents, her mum was like, we need to have him charged. And Don said, if you have him charged, I'll divorce you. And so nothing happened again. So as Don grew up, he got more and more into illicit substances. So as an adult, he met a woman named Pamela. They had more children together. So they had 2 children, a daughter named Margie and a son called Don. So now we've got Don Sr., Don Wells, Summer's father, and then we'll call Don's own son, Donnie. So Mary, Don's stepsister, says that they neglected their children severely. So there were multiple reports to DOCS, or Family and Community Child Services in America, they call it, regarding their welfare. Apparently they didn't change nappies. She recalls one incident where she went to their house and one of the babies, I think it was Donnie, was a newborn, and she had him on the lounge with a bottle next to him, thinking that he would be able to feed himself the bottle. Any mother knows that a newborn cannot feed themselves a bottle. You have to sit there and feed your newborn the bottle. So we're talking that kind of neglect. Like, she just had no idea how to parent. Apparently, Child Services got involved and made her do some lessons on how to cook and how to clean. They didn't make Don do the same lessons, but they made Pamela do those lessons. But apparently it was just horrendous. At one point in time, Mary and her family were going to adopt Margie, but apparently Pamela, they had Margie at their house for a little while, and she kept coming over. Pamela kept coming over and wanted to visit and take Margie out, and they said, no, if we adopt her, we'll give her a good life, but you have to stop coming here. You have no contact with her. And apparently the mother, Pamela, then pulled out of the adoption process and said, no, I don't want to have no contact with her. There was a shocking report by Pamela that apparently she caught Don Wells trying to sell Donnie. Yes, I said sell. Apparently he was trying to sell his son for illicit substance money. Apparently Donnie was 2 years at the time, and when she caught him, she stopped him. But that's just giving you a bit of an indication of Don Wells as a young adult. At the present time, Donnie, so Don Wells, Summer's dad's son, Donnie, he's around the age of 30, and he himself has been convicted of child sexual abuse charges. Don Wells has spoken out about his son's criminal record, and he says that it's not that bad. It was only statutory R word. Because the girl was 18 months younger than him and they were in a relationship. I don't know if that's true. I don't know the facts of Donnie's case, but it's important to note that he's also being convicted of child-related sexual offences. So Don Wells, Summer's dad, he's been convicted of multiple felonies. He doesn't like to talk about it, but he has a significant criminal record involving burglary. He spent time in prison in response to convictions involving drug-related offences, burglary. In the late 90s and early 2000s, he was charged with multiple parole violations. Don says that while he was in prison, he found God. However, after he was arrested from prison, Candace, Summer's mum, has accused him of several domestic related type of offences. So a lot of the public have commented on how they're not sure if he really has found God and he's changed his ways because, he has allegedly taken substances and been involved in these types of incidents after he's been released from prison. There's one report by Candace where apparently Don comes home really intoxicated. He accuses her of cheating on him. So there's a lot of this controlling allegations, and he's absolutely blind drunk, verbally her. He ends up in the car. She calls the police attend the house, and she says that he was both mentally and physically towards her. In response to that incident where he came home really drunk and accused her of cheating, she actually applied for a protection order against to protect her and the children. She said in those reports to police that she feared for herself and the children's safety. So that's really important. She said that to police following those incidents. During media interviews where Don was asked about Jeannie's allegations of he said that it did happen, but he called it a relationship. He said that it was consensual. Now you have to remember, he was 11 to 15 and she was 5 when it started. 5. There was a huge age gap, and during one of the interviews, Don also acknowledges the massive age gap, and he says that he knew it was wrong, but he says that she's just as much to blame. It was consensual. I mean, if that's his mindset, if he thinks that as an 11-year-old and a 5-year-old that's okay, no, to me that's just absolutely twisted thinking. Don said during one of those media interviews that she's just as guilty as I am. She's trying to pull the wool over everybody's eyes, just like she's Miss Innocent and all that. Well, she's not. Don said during that interview, yeah, she would play with my thing and I would play with hers. So these comments were made during his interview with Chris from the interview room. And when Chris asked Don what he thought should happen to the person who took Summer, Don responded, and I quote, "Well, I don't know. I have to leave it to God. I know what prison is like. I have mercy to anyone who's in prison." When Chris asked him, would you like to see the person that took her in prison? Don responded, "I don't know if I could do that, if I'm honest. It just depends on all of the circumstances." Chris says, "Well, what if it was an accident?" And Don responded, "Well, accidents happen." Don goes on to say that he should act as a molester. And he says to Chris, it might help authorities find her. In another interview, Don Wells talks about his eldest daughter being R-worded. So I'm not allowed to use the word, but use your imagination, R-worded. And he says in that interview, but she didn't go crying. She dealt with it. I've got to give my daughter props on that. To me, that is the most bizarre thing to say. If my child had been in any way harmed, I would want that person's head on a platter. I wouldn't be saying, it depends on the circumstances, etc. Or if I had a daughter and she was assaulted, I would want their head on a platter. I wouldn't be saying, she didn't go and whinge to police, I'll give her that. That's almost like applauding the victim remaining quiet because you don't want to put the person who did it in jail. Jail's too bad. Prison's too extreme. I don't know. I have massive issues with what he has said in those interviews. To me, that is just bizarre and twisted. It may be that Don Wells is innocent, but these types of comments, what he said in these interviews, it's almost like he doesn't want to say the person that took her should go to jail, because if it's him and it's later found out that it's him, that would be used against him, wouldn't it? If I was a prosecutor, I'd be showing in court that footage of him saying that person should be sent to death, that person should go to jail for life. It's almost like, in case he's caught, he doesn't want to get caught saying those types of things. I mean, this is just speculation. There's no evidence that he's involved. He might be innocent, but these are the types of things that the public is saying in response to his bizarre comments. Let's take a look at Candus Bly, who was married to Don Wells. So Candus Bly turns to Candace Wells. Let's take a look at her background. When Candus Bly was 19 years of age, she joined a carnival. Now, those carnivals, apparently they're pretty wild. So apparently she met a man called Andrew while she was at the carnival, and he was much older. He was in his 40s. They together tried substances. Now, Candace has later come out to say that she was naive and very innocent, and Andrew, he used to say to her, he used to pressure her to take illicit substances, and he introduced Candace to these types of drugs. Now, together they had 2 children together. They had a son and they had a daughter. Now, the reports are that apparently the son and daughter were severely neglected and severely abused themselves, that they were later taken away from Candace and Andrew and put into foster care. There's a report that when Candace's son was just 2 years of age, he was belted so hard with a baseball bat that he had lifelong injuries, and he was one of the children that were taken away from her care. And if he was belted that severely with a baseball bat, that's not surprising to me. Years later and recently, Candace reached out to her daughter, and she basically blamed everything on Andrew and said that she was in a violent relationship, she didn't know how to leave, and that he would threaten her that if she didn't do X, Y, and Z and take the drugs, that he would harm the children or harm her. Candace has a record of previous alcohol-related offences and also a domestic violence charge and conviction against herself. Now, this is crazy to me. So 5-year-old Summer Wells was not the first family member to disappear. Candace's own sister, Rose Marie Bly, also went missing from her family home in Wisconsin. On the 21st of August in 2009, she was 21 years of age. So apparently her sister was newly married, supposed to be meeting her cousin at a bar 5 miles away from her house. 5 days later, her car was found 30 miles from her house, abandoned. Apparently, she and her husband had been having marital issues leading up to her disappearance. There was a report of domestic violence between she and her husband soon before she disappeared. Apparently, her husband passed a polygraph test, and he's never been charged or convicted with any foul play in relation to her disappearance. But I find that so bizarre that her sister, Candace's own sister, went missing from her house in 2009. Of course, Don knew about this. Don and Candace are well aware of this. And Don has said things like, you know, her disappearance, Candace's sister's disappearance is the type of thing that keeps me up at night. And the kind of thing that makes me lose faith and lose hope that we'll ever find Summer. Candace and Don met later in life, and of course they had their children together. They later moved to that property on the 11 acres because Don actually inherited that from a deceased family member. Okay, here is another very strange recent thing that has happened. So, after Summer went missing, Candace and Don pulled a horrific, heartless, weird telephone prank on Don's stepsister, Mary. So, Candace calls Mary, and I've listened to the recording. For copyright purposes, I'm not going to put it in here. Mary receives a phone call from Candace, who is sobbing and crying and so emotional on the phone, saying that the police have showed up and they've taken Don, they've taken him. She says that they've taken Don to Boston. You can hear Mary say things like, "I'm so sorry, Candace. I wish I could be there. I wish I could be there to hug you. I'm so sorry." She's quite sympathetic to Candace and her position because she has actually maintained a relationship with Don and Candace despite all the stuff that happened in their family when they were younger. But you can hear her, she's trying to console Candace, and Candace is like hysterically crying during this prank telephone call, and it is very convincing. I can tell you, if I didn't know it was a prank call, I would literally have believed that Don had been arrested. So during the phone call, Candace says that it's to do with the mafia, and something to do with drugs. And you can hear, and she's sobbing and crying. And Mary's on the phone saying, "I'm sorry, Candace. It's not your fault. This has nothing to do with you. If he's got himself involved in, some bad things, you can't control that." And you can hear this poor lady trying to console Candace during the whole phone call. And, you know, during the phone call, Candace says that Mary says, has he come into any money? Like, what's going on with the mafia? I just don't understand. And Candace, you know, goes so far as to say yeah, he received $80,000. He's received $80,000. And she's put on this amazing show. And poor Mary's on the phone trying to console this lady. Anyway, it turns out that the whole phone call is fake. So their 5-year-old daughter is missing. And what they think to do is to prank call Mary. And I think it's really, really important to point out that, you know, Candace's acting during this phone call is so convincing. She's crying on demand, etc., etc. Now, it's come out now from Don and Candace that they have their reasons for doing it. I don't care about the reasons. I don't think that that's important. When you hear the phone call, what I find most important and most relevant, and you have to think, Candace, what are you doing? Like, all of the attention is on you and Don right now. Do you really think it's in your best interest to be prank calling people with this type of weird, horrific, heartless information? Like, she's telling Mary that her stepsister's being taken away by the police to Boston in respect of mafia-related drug offenses. Like, what is going on? Your 5-year-old daughter is missing, and you and Don are planning these prank calls? So a lot of the public have commented about how convincing her performance is during this phone call, and how, you know, if she's a liar, she's very manipulative and deceitful. So a lot of the public are now pointing their finger to Candace being involved because of this prank call that she's decided to do whilst her 5-year-old daughter is still missing. That's going to wrap it up for this video. What are your thoughts on this case? Do you have a theory as to what has happened to Summer Wells? Let me know in the comment section below. Me personally, I want to hear from the brothers. Like, you know, they're allegedly the last people to have seen Summer alive. Also, what about the grandmother Candace? We haven't heard from her yet. What do they say happened? We've heard significant inconsistencies from Hunter, the 15-year-old, but what about the brothers? What about Grandma Candace? I want to hear from them. I want to hear whether they agree with what Don and Candace have said happened, and I await hearing from them. I assume the police have spoken to them, but, you know, that's something that I would like to see happen. What do you think has happened in this case? What is your theory? Let me know. If you like this video, don't forget to actually like the video. And if you like my content, don't forget to subscribe to my channel, and I will see you in the next one.